Yutet.
On Daf Yud. Yeah, the bottom of Yud Chesem base, the two dots there.
Yeah, got a Tanura Banan.
Like 10 lines up on the bottom. Let's start from there. Okay, so we're still discussing.
The bottom, the upper Tanura Banan, not the bottom.
The bottom Tanur Rabbanan. The upper Tanur Rabbanan on the bottom of the page. Yeah, correct. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have over here Tanur Rabbanan. A person shouldn't sell his items in Nachri. You're talking about Erev Shabbos activities. He should sell his chametz to his items to a Nachri Goy. And he shouldn't lend them to him. And don't give him to borrow. Lending and borrowing, the difference is borrowing is an item. You're going to return that exact item, and halva means referring to lending someone money or an item which they're not returning that item, they're just going to replace it. But all these activities don't do Erev Shabbos. And don't give him a present. All these activities have to be done with the amount of time on Friday that he'd be able to reach his house before. So in other words, you're not doing this activity close enough to Shabbos, and that he'll be carrying these home on Shabbos itself. Yet they all have to be done way before. So that's how you see the relevance, right? Because then because if not, then people are going to make a mistake. People are going to think it's your shliach. He's acting as your agent, which obviously is a problem to have a guy do malacha for you on Shabbos. But all these things look like that if he'll be carrying something on Shabbos that you just sold him a couple of minutes for Shabbos. Therefore, make sure these activities all are done and finalized before Shkia hits in. Rabbi Kiva, right? Beisil argues and says, Beisil says, no. All we need to do is reach the house, which is samach to the chayma. You just got to reach the house that's closest to the wall of his city. You don't actually have to reach his home. Just probably get in his city walls. Right? Okay. And then even though he won't put it down there, but he's able to put the item down over there. So that's sufficient to say that he's not. This won't cause that shash, that worry. Rabbi Kiva argues says the amount of time it takes to leave your house. In other words, no, as long as you tell it to him and he's able to leave your house before Shabbos, that would be sufficient. That's all we need. Right? In other words, that's Beis Hillel. And Rabbi Kiva and Beis Hillel have the same opinion. That all you need, Rabbi Kiva and Beis Hillel, is to leave it a minute before, and leave just right before Shabbos. Because Beis Hillel's opinion, as we've seen before, is all activity which is written on Shabbos, you're allowed to do it a minute before Shabbos, even if it continues into Shabbos. And lo ba Rabbi Kiva lefarish de Beis Hillel. Oh, so it's more asking a question. What's going on there? This is the Rabbi Kiva Beis Hillel. Right? It's the same opinion. So lo ba answer the Gemara. Rabbi Kiva, are you arguing on Beis Hillel? And the Gemara says lo ba Rabbi Kiva lefarish de Beis Hillel. Rabbi Kiva is only explaining Beis Hillel. The Beis Hillel quote in the beginning of this brisa is another opinion about Beis Hillel, the Tanna Kamma's opinion about Beis Hillel. And Rabbi Kiva is saying no. Beis Hillel's opinion is immediate. You're allowed to do it immediately before Shabbos, even if it will be continued on Shabbos, as long as you leave your house right before Shabbos, which is consistent with everything we spoke of before. Okay. Tanur Rabbanan. The rabbis learned. This is more of our relevant sugya to the Pesach coming up. A person's not allowed to sell his chametz tanachi before Pesach. You have to know that you give sufficient time that he'll be able to finish it before Pesach. In other words, so if you give him a huge thing of chametz and sell it to him and give it to him, and that he'll be eating it over Pesach, that will be a problem. That's Beis Hillel's opinion. And Beis Hillel says no. As long as you're allowed to eat it, you're allowed to sell it to him. In other words, you don't have to. Basically, you could go up until Erev Pesach. Rabbi Yehuda has a little bit different take on it, and he says, "Kutach hababli komine kutach also limkor lam yom kol Pesach." Kutach hababli was this dip that they had back in the day, that they used to like mold the bread with milk, but it contained chametz in it, and it lasted a very long time. So kutach hababli and all sorts of dips that also limkor lam yom kol Pesach that you can't sell 30 days before Pesach. Those certainly will be around during Pesach. And you're basically and 13 and those and therefore you're like sort of responsible for the chametz that's being eaten on Pesach because you're selling it within that vicinity where it'll still be around. So all those are really aga, but they're all very similar things. So we'll be discussing about doing activities before the Zman of the Isser, and it continues in the Zman of the Isser. All the very similar things. But in addition, we spoke out these ideas about also sales and mekar chamemkar. And business would also be prohibited according to Beis Shammai till he's able to get home because it looks like you're shliach. Okay, now a similar halacha also. Tana Rabbanan, noistim izaynus lefnei kela b'chatzer. So again, we're speaking about halachas which you don't do per se, but you're sort of causing malachas to be done on Shabbos. So what about feeding your dog? Let's say you feed your dog, right? And you feed your dog in your courtyard, and you know the dog is going to take that bone that you fed it or that bread that you fed it and carry it outside. So it's going to be doing a malacha as a result of you. You are causing a malacha for your animal to do. Are you allowed to do that? Are you allowed to put food down in your chutzner? Maybe you only could feed it in your house. Are you allowed to feed in your chutzner? So the Brisa writes, "Noisim is zaynus lefnei kela b'chutzner." A person is allowed to put down food in front of his dog in his chutzner, and even if he's going to not love Yetza, he'll take it and go out. Ein niskaken lo. You're not obligated to stop the dog. You did your job. You fed it. It took it out. It did it on its own accord. It was its own dog mind. It wasn't you, and don't worry about it. Ki yotziboi, similarly, noisim is zonus lefnei nachri v'chatzer. You have a nachri, you have a guy in your chatzer, in your courtyard. You're allowed to give him food, right? Even in an event where he might come to take it out. Because not leviates, if he takes it and takes it out, we don't worry about it, don't stop him. Not a problem. Even though it seems like you caused that situation and they're an agent for you to carry outside in that sense because you gave them food. Not a problem. You gave it in your chutzner, that was their choice to leave, and you're not obligated to stop them. Right? I think we saw before, maybe Mark Suba says, but we'll probably see later. But if you give it to him, knowing he's going to go, it's actually the first Mishnah, the ani and the Baal Bayis. When you give it into their hands, knowing they're going to take it outside, that is going to be a problem, right? Knowing they're going to take it outside. It's only because you gave it to him in the chutzner, and then he took it out afterwards. So that's not a problem. But ask the Gemara, why do you need two cases? Why do you need a kelev case, a dog case, and a nachri case? It's conveying the same concept. So answer the Gemara, Hainu hach, hasu lamli. Why do I need other case? Hanach, the same case. Answers the Gemara, Ma'u detema. What might I think? If I only had the first case and not the case of the nachri, I might say the kelev case is okay because hayrami alei. This is upon you. It's incumbent upon you. You have an obligation to feed your animals. It's a mitzvah to feed your animals. In fact, we saw in Maseches Brachos, you're not even allowed to eat before you feed your animals, right? And that's why you can make that hefsek of between the bercha of the tila and say, and then Hamoitzi, you could say, feed the animals, Gil Tori. But it's incumbent upon you. So maybe there, where it's your job to feed it, we have this leniency. But a nachri, it's not your job to feed a nachri. Hi Rami alei, hi lo Rami. This is not incumbent upon you. Kamash Malan. Therefore, the Bryce is still teaching you that you're still allowed to give it to a nachri, and you're still allowed to give it to nachri, and even if he takes it out. I think that's the pshat. Actually, I didn't look up. That's how I learned pshat here. That's what Rami and not Rami means. It's incumbent upon you to feed the dog. But the nachri is not incumbent upon you. Okay. Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis learned. Adam Shabbos. So there's an interesting halacha here, right? And this halacha, whether it's relevant nowadays, is riddled with controversy, and you'll see why. Hopefully, we'll explain why in a moment. A person is not allowed to lend out an Erev Shabbos, Kalim Taga. You can't lend out Erev Shabbos. This is talking about Friday morning, right? Or, hey, Danny. We are up to, on the top of Yud Testament Aleph, the second two dots there, Tan Rabbanan. Right? It's like 7 lines or 7 or 8 lines down. Tan Rabbanan. Lo yasker adam kelev v'nachir Shabbos. The person is not allowed to rent out his kelev, which it seems like most people are learning. These are talking about well, it depends. It's a machlokus what type of kelim, but a person can't lend his kelim. He can't lend items. It could be clothes items. It could be, it could be a vacuum cleaner. It could be some items that do work, or it could be items that he's just going to wear. You're not allowed to rent. We'll see. So that depends on different Rishon on what type of item it is. But there's some sort of item you're not allowed to rent out to a guy, starting from Wednesday and Thursday. I'm starting from Erev Shabbos. You can't rent out to him, right? And we'll see what's the problem with that. But B'dal V'hei Mutter on Wednesday and Thursday, that's permitted. Similarly, we find a similar halacha. A person is not allowed to send a letter, a mailman basically. Give letters to a mailman, an ochri, Erev Shabbos and Shabbos. But B'dal V'hei is Mutter. On Thursday and Friday and Wednesday and Thursday is permitted. And Amar Allah al Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, it was son of Yossi HaKohen, but Amar al Rabbi Yossi HaChassid. Some people said this anecdote was said on Rabbi Yossi HaChassid. It was never found, ever, his handwriting, his letter in the hands of a Nachum Elam, because he was so careful about this halacha. He was machmer never to send it with a guy. Never send it with a guy. So what's the reason for this halacha? That I cannot rent out my kalim, my mix master, my toaster oven, perhaps my shoes, my clothes, to a guy on Erev Shabbos. What's the problem with that? I rented him. He's going to be doing malacha with on Shabbos, but I already rented him. It's his to do it. And what's the problem here? So Rashi is a little bit unclear, but Taisus maintains what the problem over here is. Don't think it's Shvisas Kalim. In other words, one can make a mistake and think it's the idea of Shvisas Kalim, which we spoke about yesterday at length. That not only does a person have to cease from doing malacha himself, his kalim cannot do malacha for him. He can't have his items working on Shabbos, right? One may say that's what this price is talking about, right? And therefore we were talking about mix masters, vacuum cleaners, things which actually do malacha. You can't lend it to Erev Shabbos, being that would your items be doing malacha for you on Shabbos. Most people reject this explanation because if that's only aliba de Beis Shammai. This brisa would be speaking in the name of Beis Shammai, and we don't hold like Beis Shammai that Shvisas Kalim is also. We hold like Beis Hillel that there's no problems for your items to be doing malacha for you on Shabbos. Only you can't do malacha, or your animal can be, but not your items. Therefore, Tosfos gives an explanation, and others, I think the Rosh as well, that the explanation of this brisa is that it's a problem of schar Shabbos. Schar Shabbos, or it looks like Schar Shabbos. Schar Shabbos means one cannot can't make money on Shabbos. You're not allowed to make money on Shabbos. That's why it's a shaila about could one get paid to be a Balkari on Shabbos, because you're making money from Shabbos activity, or one even if it's a malacha which is not prohibited for a person to do, but making money to doing something on Shabbos is a problem. It's called Schar Shabbos. You can't make money from Shabbos. That's why people might have to perhaps do something about their websites that are running on Shabbos, their businesses. You're making money from Shabbos, right? That's an issue that has to be dealt with. There's certain heterim in certain scenarios, right? But it has to be dealt with. So there's a way to get around Schar Shabbos is something called Havlah. As we all know, that you absorb Shabbos payment there. You don't pay just for Shabbos. You pay a lump sum for other days of the week and Shabbos as well. And that's a trick how to get away with Schar Shabbos. Schar Shabbos as well. So here as well, we're talking about that scenario that he paid you a lump sum for the week or for the month, therefore it wouldn't be a problem. However, if you rent it out so close to Shabbos, it looks like you're renting it in for Shabbos, and it looks like you're receiving Schar Shabbos, payment for Shabbos, and that's why we tell you to cease from this rental and only do it on Wednesday, Thursday. This is how Tosfos learns. There is other explanations as well that it looks like he's doing. If you lend a item to him before Shabbos and it's an item that he does work with, it looks like he's doing work for you on Shabbos. Those are other explanations. Rashi himself seems like Tosfos' explanation, but ultimately we'll go with that as Pashut Pshat. This is something which looks like you're receiving payment for work done on Shabbos. Okay, there's a lot more to say on that, but we'll leave it at that. Tana Rabbanan. Now, modern day mailing. Are you allowed to mail a letter on Friday? It's going to be taken, and it's going to be taken for you on Shabbos, and it's being carried on Shabbos. Are you allowed to do that? A guy is going to be doing work for you on Shabbos. He's definitely has a pickup on Shabbos. So here we have a brisa which almost directly talks about it. It says, "Ei mishalchin igros bi'anochi erev Shabbos." A person's not allowed to give a letter to anochi, a guy, a mailman, erev Shabbos, elaim kein kotzitz lo damim, unless kotzitz. This is the way to always get around Amir Lanochi. This is the way for a guy for the Malachi and Shabbos. Always the way to get around it is by doing a kotzitz, is by giving him a set price, not paying him daily or hourly. That's not what you're doing. You're not paying him daily or hourly. You're paying him for the job. If you pay someone for the job, then we don't view as if the guy is doing the malacha for you on Shabbos. He has to get it done. He chose to do it on Shabbos, but that's his choice. So therefore, the malacha done on Shabbos is the guy doing it for himself, not for you, because you paid him a fixed amount, not for a daily job. So that's what kotzitz is. Kotzitz is always a way to get around malacha. If you have a guy who need to do a job for you, and he may do something on Shabbos, the way you do it is you pay him a salary, a fixed amount for the job, not for a daily. And therefore, if he does it on Shabbos, that's not your problem. Unless it's on your property, there's Maris Ayin issues. There is other rabbinical issues, but on a really strict Ikar Adin level, there's no problem with that. Okay, so if you give him a fixed amount for the job, then him going on Shabbos is not a problem because it's his choice. Beis Shammai says you have to give it to him the amount of time before Shabbos that he'll be able to get to its destination. Beis Hillel says no. You have to give it to him with only enough time not to necessarily get to the destination, but even to get to the closest, to get to the most outer house at the edge of the city. Meaning you don't even have to reach the house, the destination, just reach the most outer house that he's able to deposit there, right? The first house that you hit in that city. But ask the Gemara, "V'halo kotzatz." I don't understand. You told me the price. You can't send a letter unless you do this kotzatz, unless you make a fixed price, and then, which is permitted. Then you tell me you got to reach your destination or reach a certain place. So the Gemara says, "Amar Sheshes Hachi Kamar." You have to read the price like this: "V'im lo kotzatz." Add the words into the brisa. If you did a kotzatz, great, everything's okay. V'im lo kotzatz, and if you did not make a ksitza, you didn't make a fixed amount, and thereby, if you didn't make a fixed amount, he will be working for you on Shabbos, then you have to make sure that he'll reach the destination before Shabbos, or at least the house closest to the city walls before Shabbos. So if you did not make a ksitza, frag the Gemara, but the beginning of the brisa says you're not allowed to send it at all unless you made a kotzatz. And then the end of the brisa says not that way. They give certain rules as long as you reach your destination. The Gemara says lo kasha. That's not a kasha. Lo kasha, that's not a question. It depends. Apparently, back in the day, they used to. This is more like a post office, Beidor. If they had a post office place in the city, the destination place, then you're permitted to send it to them without kotzatz, providing that you could reach your destination before Shabbos. But that's with the condition that there's a post office in that city. Because if there's a post office in the city, you gave them, let's say you calculated there's enough time on Friday to send a letter and reach the destination without making a kotzatz. That's permitted, provided there's a post office, because maybe he's not home. And then you'll have to go searching around the city to find him, and then you'll end up carrying on Shabbos. The guy will carry on Shabbos for you. But if there's a post office, not a problem. Because the post office, you can just deposit directly to the post office. You don't have to actually reach the destination. And therefore there's no suspicion that maybe he'll be running after the guy on Shabbos to look for him. However, if there is no post office in the city, then even if you give it with him sufficient time to reach the destination for Shabbos, right, that would be a problem. Because maybe he's not home and you'll have to go looking around for him and he'll be carrying on Shabbos then. However, if you do a kotzatz, everything is permitted, right? If you make a salary, say, I'm paying you $100 to deliver this letter whenever you deliver it, that's fine, because his going on Shabbos is for himself. It's not for you, because you pay him a salary or you're paying him a salary. That's really why modern day mailing is okay, really, because there's a katsatz, he gets a salary. That's not really a problem. Not a problem at all. There might be other etamer as well, but that's the most basic bare level heter. Interesting halacha, right? This could be relevant. It's probably not relevant nowadays. Hashem did away with all this stuff. But going on a cruise, right? Could one go on a cruise Erev Shabbos or Thursday or Wednesday? There's an interesting halacha. You're not allowed to go on a boat less than 3 days Kodem Shabbos. I think it's Malchokas to count. Is Wednesday counted or not? But let's just say Wednesday. I think it's Malchokas by that point. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You cannot leave on Wednesday to go on a cruise. Certainly on Thursday, certainly on Friday. Before Shabbos. So when are these words talking about? The Dvar Rishus. That's only talking about if you're doing it for Dvar Rishus. You're doing it for your own purpose. What's the Dvar Rishus? For sure leisure. I'm not sure what the status of business is, but for sure leisure. Or for sure, I think a case if you're going there just to make more wealth. Actual parnasa may be a shaila. But for a Dvar Mitzvah, Shaper Dami, not a problem. Providing Poisik Imam Lishpos. You go to the captain and make a stipulation that says, please stop for Shabbos, and he agrees they'll stop for Shabbos. But even in an event where and even if he doesn't decide to stop on Shabbos, you did your part, and that's sufficient. Dibbi Rebbe, these are words of Rebbe. You don't need to actually make that stipulation. From the distance from the town of Sur to the town of Sidon, I feel Erev Shabbos mutter, even Erev Shabbos is mutter, because I guess, what's the reason for that? It's only a one-day travel. Apparently, they have to point this out because the Yom HaShuk, the big day, the Black Friday day of business was on Friday. That was they had a Black Friday business day there, and that you had to go there for business purposes. And it was only one-day travel, so that would be permitted even on Erev Shabbos, that distance over here. What's the reason for this strange halacha? You can't go on a boat 3 days before Shabbos. What's the halacha? Many different explanations given. A number of them I just saw over here, and then the Rush. I think there's more I've seen in the Mishnah Berurah given. But Taisus just says, very simple, that it's a problem of swimming. You're not allowed to swim on Shabbos. This is under the category of not allowed to swim on Shabbos. One cannot swim on Shabbos because we're afraid he might make an apparatus to floating apparatus. So this is under that category of that Zera. The question is, though, why is 3 days? What does it have to do with 3 days? I guess when you're closer to the realm of Shabbos, it's more of a problem. There's other explanations giving that some people say because you're causing yourself to go out of the tchum. You're making it's a tchum issue. It's a boundary issue. You're not allowed to go 2,000 outside semi limits, right? That also the explanation is riddled with machlokas, riddled with controversy. Some people say you might come to break Shabbos. Your boat is a dangerous place on the stormy seas. You're putting yourself in a situation you have to break Shabbos. You can't do that. Why is 3 days before not a problem? I'm not clear about that. And another explanation given is Oneg Shabbos. There's a mitzvah to take pleasure in Shabbos and have an enjoyable time on Shabbos, have good food on Shabbos, relax on Shabbos. If one goes on, apparently, it takes 3 days for a person to get settled to sea, to get his seasickness down and to get used to it. Within 3 days, a person will be throwing up, vomiting, his stomach was head, seasickness. It's a bittul of Oneg Shabbos. That's the problem. So therefore, you have to go at least 3 days, before 3 days, that you're able to be settled and used to the sea before Shabbos kicks in. So some of the reasons given for this halacha over here. Let's go further. Interesting halacha, another interesting halacha. A person we're not allowed to lay siege on Goyish cities that we're trying to capture less than 3 days before Shabbos. And I think the Rush is a very similar thing. This is Bittul Oneg Shabbos. Right? Within 3 days of the siege, there's tremendous pachat, tremendous anxiety and fear. So that takes away from the Oneg Shabbos. If you do it before 3 days, you already are a little bit more chilled and relaxed. And there might be other explanations. I saw that in the Rush. And if you began the siege, then then don't stop. Shammai brought a pasuk, a verse back to Allah. Read it to Afilu b'Shabbos. Afilu b'Shabbos. I guess the summer laying a siege. It's even talking about you could do it on Shabbos, even on Shabbos. Okay, Tanya. We're learning a brayso. Amar v'Salo. Kachay minaglu shabeis rogil. The minag of beis rogil she'anoistin kli laban l'kayves gimel yom kodesh Shabbos. That he would give a white vessel. This we spoke about in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that you have to be careful. Mishnah says that related a story that Beis Abba, Rishon said his father used to make sure to give over white keli to the launder 3 days before Shabbos. And he was suspicious of Beis Shammai's opinion that even though he gave it before Shabbos, since the malacha would be, it takes a lot of whitening, a lot of laundering. The malacha would be done on Shabbos as a result of that. Therefore, he refrained even from Erev Shabbos. So the Gemara relates over Tanya. We learn a brayso. Amar v'Sado kachle minag shabeis Rabbi Gamliel. This was the minhag of the house of Rabbi Gamliel. She'noistin kli lavan l'kayves gimel yom kodesh Shabbos. They would give a kli lavan, a white keli, which takes a lot of excessive washing, excessive cleaning, to a koves gimel yom kodesh Shabbos, 3 days before Shabbos. Vitzvuyim, but colorful garments which take less washing, afilu b'erev Shabbos, even Erev Shabbos. U'midivrei lamanu, from here we learn shalavanim kashin the kavsius mitzvah. We see from that the way that they conducted themselves that obviously white kalim, a good practical piece of advice, take a lot more effort and are much harder to wash more than colorful kalim, and therefore they made sure to give it within sufficient time that will be done before Shabbos. Again, like we spoke out, they were being machmer like the opinion of Beis Shammai. So now the Gemara relates a little anecdote here. Abai would give over a colorful clothes to wash to a katzra, to a launder, to a certain laundryman. And not the same laundryman as before, Danny. All right, I know you're thinking that. But a laundryman, the katzra. So Amalei, he said to him, Kama ba'isa ilove. He said to him, how much do you want to be paid for this? I think he's talking to him, the laundryman. He said, how much do you want to be paid for this? So Amalei, he answered back, Kidechivra, the price of a white garment. So Amalei, I guess what's going on, I'm not sure. He's trying to fool him. He's saying, yeah, the same price for the white garment. And Amalei,
he's trying to fool him, yeah.
What?
He's trying to fool him.
It sounds like he's trying to pull a fast one on him. He's saying, yeah. The same price as a white garment. So Amalei, so Rabbi Shimon, you see, everything is in the Torah. He says, Rabbi Shimon says, the father, he says, everything's in the Torah. He says, you fool. The rabbis already preceded you. I'm already aware of all the tricks up your sleeve. Because the rabbis already said this halacha, that white garments are much harder to clean than colorful garments, and therefore you're charging me a more expensive price, because a colorful garment does not require the same effort at all as a white garment. So everything's in the Torah. Now the Gemara gives another piece of practical advice when it comes to giving over to launder. That someone who gives over clothing to a launder who's going to wash them, obviously in boiling water, so there's potential. There's two problems that can result. He could shrink the garment or he could stretch it out too much. So give it over b'mishcha. Do you have man lekatz mishcha? Nesa levi mishcha. I'm sorry. The yad man lekatzra. He gives over clothes to a launder. The mishcha nesa levi. You should give it to him by a measurement, meaning measure it, how big it is, and then give it over to him. And take it back from him and measure it when you take it back from him. Because that way, because you see it's larger when you take it back, then he ruined it, because you see that he stretched it out too much. And if you see that it's shrunk, it's lower, you see that he ruined it because I guess he shrunk it. So this way you can really see if you're being swindled or not swindled.
Rabbi Becker?
Yeah.
Why is the Gemara concerning itself with showing us that it's easier to clean colored than white when anybody knows that just based on or two experiences washing, and any woman knows that, and so on. I mean, it's what's the big deal to spend time in the Gemara teaching us that point?
Right. I don't know. I mean, the practical advice, I don't know. I mean, it is relevant for the halachic purposes. Right?
But I mean, practical advice is fine, but this is practical advice that you don't even. It's not worthy of the Gemara to spend time on that unless there's a deeper reason that I'm not seeing.
A good question. I don't know the answer. Let me look.
Maybe people won't be cheated. It's a monetary thing.
Yeah, Danny's saying though, you don't need anyone to tell you that. It's obvious that white clothes are much pricier because they're harder to. That's something you can figure out yourself. I don't know. We'll have to ask Victor Shapiro. I'm sure there's something deeper going on here.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's go further. Vishab and Elu, and both agree. Moment. Vishab and Elu, this is the end of the Mishnah, that even though Beis Shammai says you have to cease from Shabbos activities, even before Shabbos, that will continue on throughout Shabbos, they both agree that you're allowed to take a beam, Beis Abad, and you're allowed to press it onto the grapes or the olives and leave it remaining there. The juices, you do that before Shabbos, and leave it there flowing as Shabbos goes along. And the reason for that being is, maybe Rashi already told it to us, we'll see in the Gemara over here, is because Beis Shammai was only geyser, only decreed things which if you did it on Shabbos, because we're always, the reason Beis Shammai, and then the day we came out, is suspicious about doing things even before Shabbos, even on Shabbos, because we're afraid that you might come to do it on Shabbos. So therefore, it has to be an activity that if you did it on Shabbos, it would have been something that would be a Torah liability, a chayav chatas. But if it's something that even if you did it on Shabbos, it would not be a problem. It wouldn't be only be rabbinically prohibited. That wouldn't be a problem to do it before Shabbos, to leave it remaining going through Shabbos. So that's the reason that Beis Shammai permitted you to leave this beam, this Beis Abad, pressed on the olives, because the olives we're talking about were already pressed already, and therefore now, or they're already processed to some extent. Now it's just the final pressing process to get the juice, and they would have came up by themselves anyways, without the press. So therefore, we don't consider it a problem. So therefore, it wouldn't be a Torah violation even if you pressed it on Shabbos. Therefore, you're allowed to do it before Shabbos and leave it remaining there to be pressed throughout the Shabbos. So the Gemara wants to know, who is the opinion? Oh, sorry. So the Gemara asked that question. What's the difference in everything he made Xera, and all of a sudden here he was okay, he was lenient? So the answer to the Gemara, like I told you, that all the other things in the Mishnah, that worst case scenario, even if he did that on Shabbos, then it'd be chayav chatas. So if it was actually done on Shabbos, it has that severity. Beis Shammai says no, don't do that even Erev Shabbos, because we may come to actually ask them to do it on Shabbos, and there'll be a violation of a Torah violation of telling a guy to do malacha on Shabbos, a real malacha. But Karav's Beis Abad, but these beams over here, the Abba Shabbos, even if you did them on Shabbos, because they're already processed, they're already smashed already. Now this is just the final process to ooze them out completely. So even if you did this process on Shabbos, you put the ban on Shabbos, lo mechayev chatas, it wouldn't be Torah violation. So in this case, they'll go zero by one. The rabbis never made a xera to do it before Shabbos. It's okay. Now the Gemara will know, who is this author of this Mishnah? Who is the author of this idea that anything which would automatically happen by itself, that it would be okay to do it before Shabbos? Montana the Chomidias Mela Shopper. I mean, who is the opinion that holds anything that comes automatically, like it would have oozed out by itself even without you pressing it? It's just extra, and therefore wouldn't be a chiyav chatas to press it on Shabbos. They are allowed to do it before Shabbos, right? Who is that opinion? So Rav Yosi Berachina and Rabbi Shmali. This echoes the opinion of Berachina ben Gamliel. Ditzan Hashum Ba'Baisim Alios. All these items, these food items are like grapes at the beginning when they're very small. They used to smash them to make some sort of more sharper, like a sort of vinegary sort of taste, and they used to dip in them. Our malilos are, again, kernels that didn't become fully ripened. So all these things, they used to smash them and let the liquids come out of them. I guess they were good for dips. Or shum is some sort of garlic. right? Sheroskin Boyd right? And they're already smashed up and processed before Yom, and now you just want to finalize the process and leave the beam on their Erev Shabbos, right, to continue on Shabbos. So they're already processed over here. So therefore, even if you do smash the liquids to come on Shabbos itself, it wouldn't be a chiyuv chatas. Therefore, you can leave it remaining from Erev Shabbos in that way. Rabbi Shmuel says, leave it. You can leave it under the beam. Once they're already smashed up and they're piled under this heavy beam, leave them there. And that's mutter. Rabbi Kiva says, lo yigmar, don't complete it. You can't leave it there. So the Gemara is understanding right now that our Mishnah, Beis Shammai's opinion at the end of the Mishnah, is the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel echoes the same idea, that we're talking about something processed already, properly processed already, and therefore it's just extra credit to get the oozing out more. That beam, that would still be a rabbinic violation to do that extra credit on Shabbos, but we didn't geyser Erev Shabbos to put that beam on, because either way it would have oozed out by itself eventually, and therefore the squeezing process is not a malacha d'oraisa. So do Erev Shabbos. Rabbi Lazar argues and says it's a different opinion. It's not Rabbi Shmuel. It's Rabbi Lazar says it's Amar Lazari. It's Rabbi Lazari. There's two different Rabbi Lazars. This is good to note. There's a Rabbi Lazar who's an Amayra, and there's a Lazar who's a way earlier generation of Tana. Rabbi Lazar the Amayra is Rabbi Lazar ben Padas. And he's quoting Rabbi Lazar the Tana, who's Rabbi Lazar ben Shamua. So that's a good way to remember. Ben Shamua is the Tana, ben Padas is the Amayra. So Rabbi Lazar is quoting the opinion of Rabbi Lazar and saying he is the author of the Mishnah Beis Shammai. Rabbi Lazar Amar Rabbi Lazar he. It says it's Rabbi Lazar he, Rabbi Lazar ben Shamua. It's not, as you learn in Mishnah. If you have a honeycomb, the honeycomb that they take it to extract the honey out of it, that you smashed it before Shabbos, and now the liquid oozes out itself on Shabbos. There's a gzera, just a little background, there's a gzera on Shabbos, then mashkim shazabu, we'll see coming up later, well, so the end, towards the end of Masechta. Mashkin shazavu, liquids that's oozed out, let's say liquids oozed out of your grapes that you didn't smash. You're not allowed to drink those liquids, because we're afraid that if you drink those liquids, you might come to squeeze the grapes. It's xera, providing that those grapes are there not just for eating purposes, they're there for squeezing purposes. So liquid that oozes out, you're not allowed to drink it. So with that, because we're afraid you might come to squeeze it. With that background, chalos tavash riskim erev Shabbos, chalos tavash that you smashed them before on erev Shabbos, biyatzim yatzman, and the liquid oozed out on Shabbos. Also, you're not allowed to drink that liquid. You can't drink that honey. Right? Rabbi Lazar matter. Rabbi Lazar says it's permitted. Okay, so here, this is our opinion. Here we see that if it's already smashed, we permit the liquids there that are coming out of it. So we see liquids that are coming out of there. We considered already processed already. It's already processed to the extent where the liquids that you're allowed to drink, and we're not afraid you're going to further smash. Which seems to echo the idea we've been saying till now, that if something was already processed, we don't make rabbinical gzeras there, and we allow you to put the beam on an Erev Shabbos to continue going on Shabbos, being that even if you did smash it on Shabbos, it would be only a rabbinic violation. That echoes the opinion of Elazar. So the question is, why did each opinion choose a different Tana? On Amid Aleph, Rav Yossi Bar Yechanina said it's the opinion of Rav Shmuel about the Melilos and the Beiser. And Rav Elazar chose to say it's Rav Elazar. Why did they each choose their Tana, not the other Tana? So ask the Gemara, Rav Yossi Bar Yechanina, my Tana Lomer Rav Elazar. Why did Rav Yossi Yechanina say like the opinion of Rav Elazar? So Amalach, he'll tell you, Hasim who, that's not a good source for our Mishnah. Because Rav Elazar case by the honeycomb is, Hasim Mikar Eichel V'Seich Eichel. There it started off food, and it ended off being food. That's not a good source, because maybe that's more lenient, because either way, you never changed its status. It was always food inside the honeycomb, and the end of the day when it seeped out, it's also food. So maybe that's less severe. But in our Mishnah, Meikar Eichel, the Hashtamash, it started off grapes, and now it's a liquid form. Maybe we were more severe there because it's a totally new form. So maybe we'd be more severe in such a case, and we wouldn't allow it even if it's previously processed already. And therefore, we need to pick an opinion who says it in the context of smashing grapes or smashing olives of that sort. Rav Elazar Amar Lach, Rav Elazar says no. The honeycomb is a good source for Elazar because the Shemini later Elazar feels this Lanovin, I'm sure. Because I happen to know in a Brisa, Elazar also maintains and extends his opinion even more than honeycombs, even when it comes to Zeis Vanovin, which Zeis Vanovin start off to be Ochel and come liquid, and he still says his opinion there. He brought a Brisa in his hands that said Zeis Vanovin Shabbos Shabbos, olives and grapes that were already processed and smashed up before Erev Shabbos, and now they're just smashed, but now they're flowing by themselves, asur, and prohibited drinking because we're afraid you might come to do the final process. And Relazar is Shem Matir, and they permitted. So I know that Relazar's opinion from a Brisa extends more than a honeycomb. Therefore, I was willing to say it's the opinion of Relazar. But the only question is, and what about Rios Bar Chanina? Why did he reject the opinion of Relazar? Relazar says it even by grapes, not just by honeycombs. So the Gemara says, Rios Bar Chanina, Brisa lo Shmilei. He didn't know about this Brisa. He wasn't aware about the Brisa. We find Amoraim are not obligated to be aware of every Brisa. They can't miss a Mishnah, but a Brisa they're not obligated. A Brisa is so accessible, is not always so well known. So he didn't know about this Brisa. Therefore, he chose the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel to echo the idea of the Mishnah. To ask the Gemara, why didn't Rabbi Lazar say like Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina? Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina is a good source, right? It shows the idea of the Mishnah. So why didn't he say Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina? So Amalach, Rabbi Lazar will tell you, La Beitmar Allah, was it not said on that Mishnah? Was it not said that? One moment. Was it not said on the Brisa of Rabbi Yishmael over there that it qualified it? And it said, apparently there was different processing stages. There's a dicha and there was a shchicha. Dicha was the preliminary, but the very preliminary stage of smashing it. Shchika was a more developed stage of smashing it, and then eventually they put the beam on top of it. So it was like it sounded like it was a three-step process here. So Rav Yochanan says, if it's mechusar dicha, if these grapes are lacking in the process of dicha, the very preliminary stage, everyone would agree to put the beam on them is asur, because they're lacking the preliminary stage. Ki pligi b'mechusar shchika. They're arguing about a scenario where the mechusar, that more developed stage, the more processed stage. Then in that case, are you allowed to put the beam? Are you allowed to put the beam on it Erev Shabbos to extend on Shabbos? That's what they argue. And being that's the case, Hani Nami Mechusar Dicha. Our Mishnah is also a case where it's Mechusar Dicha. Our Mishnah is talking about a case where it didn't have that process of Dicha yet. Maybe there was 4 stages. There was like a little bit of a press stage. Then they did Dicha, and then they did Shchicha. So our Mishnah is dealing with they're missing one of those preliminary stages, and everyone would agree in that scenario it's usher to put the beam on there. So that's what the Gemara is answering. The reason that he didn't want to choose the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel is because Rabbi Shmuel agreed if you were lacking the preliminary stage of smashing it, you're not allowed to put the beam on it. You're not allowed to put the beam on it, and our Mishnah is that scenario. Therefore, he would never say our Mishnah would be permitted. Okay. Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina of Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina was Meira to Rabbi Shmuel. He paskin like Rabbi Shmuel. He gave that psak like Rabbi Shmuel. Now the Gemara, yes.
Where it says Rabbi Chanina was not aware of this brisa, isn't that kind of shvach? I mean, wouldn't that be said anytime someone doesn't know something?
Yeah, a brisa. You say that many times. A brisa is not something to get rattled over. You're not obligated to know every brisa. Okay. You can't contradict the brisa, but we don't hold you account. We don't hold Amora is not scholarly, or we don't hold him accountable for not knowing the brisa. You see that a lot of times. The Mishnah, it's unacceptable not to know. So it seems.
Okay.
Now the Gemara now deals with a little bit like a random subject for Rashi. The Gemara is now dealing with muksa, right? Random subject. Once we're on the subject of oil, now we're going to discuss the muksa of oil. Shemen shabadodim. The oil, I'm just going to explain it according to Rashi. The oil of vadodim. Rashi says, since we're talking about the olive presses, let's talk a little about oil. Apparently, there's oil that remained in the corner of the press after they put that big pole on top of it, and after what was remaining there was some sort of oil there. I guess that it was given over to the workers, got to keep that. Also, machzos, also the machshal shabbatim, also the mats of the workers, the mats. They used to cover the olives of them. So the remnant oil, whatever that is, wherever that is, the remnant oil and the mats that they cover the azesim with. The Gemara wants to know, are they muksa or not muksa? Rav Shmuel Shari. Rav says they're prohibited to move on Shabbos because they're muksa. Shmuel Shari, Shmuel says they're permitted. And there's a machlokus and elsewhere in Maseches Beitza, or we're going to see it in Shabbos as well. Do you hold the muksa or not? We know Rav Yehuda holds the muksa. Rav Shimon argues, except in certain scenarios, Rav Shimon doesn't hold the muksa. So they're arguing about the machlokus of Yehuda and Rav Shimon. Is there muksa or not muksa? I guess these are, I'm not sure what type of muksa these are. I guess they're muksa for malacha, or no muksa for malacha. I'm not clear exactly what type of muksa they are. Yeah, okay, but they're muksa. That's Rashi, a form of muksa. They're designated for mundane activities. So they're arguing about machlokas Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon. Rav goes like the opinion of Yehuda, and Shmuel goes the opinion of Shimon. Hani karchi dezuze. Those karchi dezuze. What are karchi dezuze? Rashi says, again, there's some sort of pair of mats that they used to cover the merchandise in the ships. Again, they're also muksa. They're designated for put away, set aside. They're designated for these muksa for business. They're muksa. Rav Aser, Shmuel Shari. Same machlokas. Rav holds like Rav Yehuda that muksa is prohibited, and Shmuel holds like the opinion of Shimon that we don't hold a muksa. Amar of Nachman, Eiz lechalav of rachli zasa. What if you have, this is talking about on Yontif, you have a goat. Goats, animals are not muksa on Yontif, but they're kosher animals because you could slaughter them on Yontif, right? Or like a sheep is not, it's not muksa on Yontif because you can slaughter it. But what if they're designated for their milk, or they're designated for their shearings? They're not there as designated animals for eating, but rather for milking and for shearing. Are they muksa or time to go to the beitza or chicken again? Chicken is not inherently muksa on Yom Tov because you could slaughter it. But if it's set aside it's not set aside for eating. It's muksa. It's put aside for a different activity, for shearings, for eggs, for milk, or tori deradia. Again, an ox. An ox is not inherently muksa on Shabbos. On Yom Tov, I'm sorry, because you can slaughter it. But if it's designated for plowing, or tamri de iska, or tamri de iska is what's tamri de iska, or that they're or dates, which are not meant for consumption. They're there for business. So all these things are really inherently permitted items, really could be, but they're set aside. They're muksa. They're set aside for something else. What's the halacha here? So again, it's the same focus of Yehuda Rishim. If you hold a muksa, Rav Asi or Rav Asa, Rav holds a muksa like Yehuda, and Shmuel says muksa like Rishim. They come lifting and put their Yehuda Rishim. They're arguing about the same halacha as Yehuda Rishim. Okay, muksa is a much larger that we don't really not going to get involved in that, but this is there because there is some muksa Rishim definitely agrees to. It seems like we're just talking about the muksa which someone sets aside, that it's off limits for Shabbos. That type of muksa. Do you hold to that or not? Okay. Let's finish the Gemara. How Tamida the Uri Becharsa the argues. There was a certain student that Paskin Uri was he Paskins. He let out a psak halacha. Becharsa is a city called Charsa. The argues, and he said an argues of the argues. I'm sorry, argues is the name of a person. It's the name of argues. It was the person who built the city. And Rashi actually says an interesting idea here. And Rashi says a little bit of tidbit here. That's a city Rav Hanuna lived in. He says you could still find Rav Hanuna's cave there to this day. I don't know what that means. Okay, whatever. You can find the city of Charsa. Rav Hanuna is apparently buried there. But Charsa, so a certain student, Paskin, the Charsa argues, Rav Shimon. He passed him like Rav Shimon. Then there's no muksa. Shamte Rav Hanuna. Rav Hanuna put him in Chayrim. So ask him, why did he put him in Chayrim? Rav Shimon Sulei. He holds like Rav Shimon. He doesn't hold the muksa. And it's more about Asir Rav, because this is the place of Rav. Rav was the rabbi in that city, and it's disrespectful to passing against Rav in that city. So Allah he shouldn't have done such a thing. Last incident, Hani Trey Talmidin. There was two students. Chad Matzah b'Chad Mana. This is a very side halacha. It's really relevant to a later chapter in Masechet Shabbos about what one is allowed to save when he's a fire on Shabbos in his house. What is he allowed to save inside his chutz or merevis? There's a xera that you're not allowed to save, only save a certain amount of food. So one Talmud saved the Chad Mana, took many items and saved it in one keli. You're allowed to take as long as you put in one keli, you can save as many food items as you want. The Chad Matzah b'Arba Chamesh Mana. One put it into many different manas, many different kelim, and then wrapped it and then put it all into one blanket and wrapped it all up together. Right? That's what Rashi explains. Matzah b'Arba Chamesh Mana. The Kamifki beplukted Rabbi Barzal Ravuna. Later on, about Rabbi Barzal Ravuna of how much are you allowed to say and what method are you allowed to save your food in the fire that's existing in Shabbos into your chutzner. Okay, we'll discuss it at a later point here. Okay, let's stop over here.
Shkoyach.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.